Throughout the trip, our soundtrack was random and personal. Just before we left Johannesburg, I grabbed a few CDs for the bus. Van Morrison, Santana, Ry Cooder, and lots of djembe drumming, which with heavy rain and mist accompanied us on the easy 3-hour drive to Durban. We would be overnighting at a B&B, but before that, to put the rest of the trip in context, we were scheduled to meet with Rodney Blumenfeld and Martha Zettler, two well-known local ceramic artists. Their work bore no relation to the two traditions we would be experiencing, but it epitomized the direction that South African ceramics was taking at that time.
What road are we in? Bellevue. Oh, we should have gone at Musgrave.
Arriving in Durban, we dropped off the bags and met up with Sue Greenberg, the owner of Durban's Bayside Gallery. A leading authority on local craft, Sue was extremely well connected to both rural and urban potters. She would be our guide and facilitator for the journey into rural KwaZulu starting the following day. And she led the way to Rodney Blumenfeld's house in Morningside, where both Rodney and Martha Zettler would be presenting their work.
So going up to Banfield Crescent, okay, number 16. Yeah, all right, okay.
I thought I looked at this German tradition. I thought I better do myself something.
The cultural boycott that had excluded South Africa from participation in international events for more than a decade ended when the government changed in 1994. The first ever international ceramics competition, with entries from as far afield as the UK and the USA, was held in Johannesburg in 1998. By 2003, the world had again opened up, and for many South African artists like Rodney and Martha, it was exciting to seek and receive first world exposure.
But you know what? The easiest way to do it because of the sound. Put it down, talk to him first, and then sort of pick, and then just view the work. You know what I mean? Otherwise, you make it very complicated because the sound will vary in quality all the time. So let him sit on whatever.
Ati gave me some sound audio-visual advice, which regrettably I had no time to follow. Some artists welcome the opportunity to talk about their work. Some do not. Rodney fell into the latter category. But in fact, verbalizing his aesthetic would have been redundant. His richly eclectic home gallery studio said it all.
Yeah, that I got 20 years ago. It's amazing. Yeah? No, I don't think so. Okay, the way these are made, they press molded and then things are added onto them. And the molds are made, occasionally I'll make just a shape and two of them, so I join it and then add sort of headrests and feet and all different things. Then I'll combine different molds and get odd, because there are a few odd shapes around.
And then the surface, you work that afterwards?
Yeah. Once it's sort of leathery hard and joined, I work on the surfaces with all sorts of things. Anything that makes a dent or a hole. And then the colours are brushed on, they're commercial amateur, yeah.
So it's one side?
It's one side, yeah. Sometimes I'll fire again if it doesn't feel right.
What temperature?
Just under 1100. It's all about the energy or the feeling it gives.
They do have an energy that is so particular to this part of the world, don't you think?
I think so, but people in America think it's American Indian.
Really?
And Australia think it's Aboriginal.
That's interesting. It does
So it must be a universal.
Yes.
Where did you get the inspiration from?
Zulu. Zulu, yeah. I don't know, I've always loved the scale of them and the crispness.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a huge influence. It's just
All inspiration.
yeah.
Yes,
It's a catalyst, maybe.
Do you see them in pairs at all, or they individual? I mean, we're seeing a collection, but how do you see them as individuals or as collectives?
I work in about six maximum.
From the same mold, the same form,
Yeah.
at the same time.
Almost same design coming out, but it keeps, with each piece it changes.
And did you start working in clay after you became an architect?
No, during.
During.
It kept me going through architecture. Yeah.
That reminds me.
But you worked as an architect, and
Yeah.
at which point did you decide, because you're working professionally in clay now, or
Yeah.
full time? So at which point did you decide to make that leap, and has it been a struggle, or has it sort of been...
It's been a huge struggle, yeah. But working on Sun City made me realize I needed to do something else. That was a long time ago when it first started.
So that was courageous.
Yeah.
Was
I
that BDB,
still
or-
have nightmares about it.
Do you?
Yeah.
Are you still sometimes sort of tempted to go back to architecture for...
Yeah. What you want to do, but
Yeah,
I couldn't do this and something else.
yeah, that's the thing, yeah.
Just like when I was doing architecture, I couldn't do this.
Yeah, you need to focus.
Yeah.
A hypothetical question. If you should do something totally different now, let's say Barockish with, sort of very flowing lines or something, and organic. And how do you think the people who know your work would receive that?
And made for the new change.
Sue could answer that.
I don't know, a lot of artists feel pressure to move on and do something different because they feel their market wants something
You see,
different.
I feel I'm moving on all the time. Probably no one else does. But the things I do, like one line will change everything for the next time.
Changes,
Yeah.
You can carry on like that for long.
Yeah.
How many years is this thing
Full time, probably about 12, 15 years.
Do you have a very early piece? Where you started?
Yeah. That was Rodney. I used to do Rodney. I'm not technically. I'm pretty stupid, so I do what I know and get the effect. Yeah. Have you been down to the studio?
No, not yet.
Okay. See how tiny it is? Yeah.
They look like a thing that suddenly become like an eye or a fish to them.
Lovely. No, very good.
When you draw these, do you do it freehand or do you measure it out to know where you're going to go, or by now can you just
I
pretty well
can't
freehand?
measure, but it is all freehand. I love that. I think that's vibrating. It does something to your senses.
The image, because it's not like Volkos, it's not expressive use of clay at all. It's very controlled design.
Yeah.
Now I have to lecture the third year history students, so what do you want me to tell them? What is your raison d'etre?
Tell them something nice.
Try and decipher it.
They will, won't they?
Yes.
It's a language,
And they'll probably find a language.
They will find a language and then work on it until they find a language.
I like what's happening there. To do architecture. It's an amazing sculpture, but it's not really like that. people and bylaws and things. You can't just do what you want to do. I almost have to do what I want to do. Practice it correctly.
Though the visual impact of their work was very different, there were several similarities in Rodney and Marta's working practice. Aware of contemporary trends and seeking a global audience, they both used geometric patterning, molds, multiples, and the language of international modernism, though with very different inflections.
Because I make the negative. I make a pot. I have done it on a wheel. I have cut it up, joined it together, and then made a mold.
Marta's paper-thin vessels were slip-cast from imported bone china. In one piece molds she created from wheel-thrown and altered prototypes. Complex shallow relief patterning was developed by sandblasting tape-resist designs after a low bisque firing. Pieces were hardened in a cone 8 firing prior to a final cone 1 firing for the brush-on glaze accents.
If you enter an exhibition somehow, if it got unity, it looks so much better. And I have to make the bigger one first. I think fired it will be about 22 centimeters. And then from that mold I made a stoneware cast, fired it high, and then made another mold because it shrinks about 10-12%. And then I did the same again. So I only got 3 sizes left and I had more. So then you got at least exactly the same shape, just in a smaller version. And so that I thought it was very clever. Not only it was original, but at least because before I just said, gosh, it was a bit too wide and not so right. Somehow they look great now together, see, so that's very good. I have been invited to show my work in Switzerland, so I'm doing a set of 5 now. Taller one, smaller one, a wider one, a slimmer one, and I think a small size like that. So
The strength of bone china after firing belies its apparent fragility, and this, together with its small scale and light weight, made it the perfect material for Marta to use to achieve a goal of competing and exhibiting internationally.
And I really was determined to do something and do more. Instead of just being what they call maybe garage potter or whatever, housewife potter. I thought it's not good enough. I want to get into it because it's my love, my passion. I do enter international competitions. If you slowly then get known internationally, get accepted here, there, and everywhere. So in US then also can ask more money for these things and to really make it worth it. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm loving it. I have to carry on for many, many more years.
Alright, now I'm just interested to hear, artists' viewpoints on websites and their value, and why are you getting a website?
Editing this footage now in 2023, it is almost quaint to hear Kathy earnestly questioning the marketing potential of artists' websites. To remember that the viewfinder of the Super 8 camera showed everything in black and white, and to recall how precious it was to have an answering machine if you lived alone in 2003.
Very nice. Fantastic. Very nice. Thank you.
We left for our B&B exhausted. It had been a long day, and tomorrow would be a very early morning.